Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. My goal has been, my goal has been to start this channel every day between 5 to 6 p.m. And so far, I've been able to stick with that particular schedule. So first, I want to thank everybody who subscribed to the channel, everyone who likes, even if you dislike. I still say, if you took time to actually watch it, thank you, I appreciate it. All my patrons and all the people who donate, thank you very much. You guys make the show. So, I got a piece of good news. And when I got this piece of good news, I wasn't necessarily sure if this could hold an entire show, but at the very least, I wanted to show it. And I want to present the way I see this bit of news. The guy who's standing beside me there, that dignified gentleman, that guy's named Dylan Ratigan. Now, a lot of people who are around my age will remember Dylan Ratigan as one of the hosts on MSNBC. Now, yes, it is true that he was a host on MSNBC, but Dylan Ratigan eventually left MSNBC after a magnificent meltdown where he railed against both parties and left MSNBC to pursue a different career. Now, Dylan Ratigan is back. I'm going to go through his meltdown, the thing that a lot of lefties really know him for. I'm going to go into what he's been doing afterwards, meaning why he left MSNBC, what he was doing when he's back, and what he's going to be doing now. And it is good news. So, for those of you who don't remember Dylan Ratigan, let's take a step back through time. Lefty Firebrand, Dylan Ratigan, saying something that's extraordinarily true, something that the media never really touches because the media is in this kind of weird, this idea of thought, there's this paradigm of thought that they don't necessarily disturb. And so it was odd to hear somebody in this paradigm of thought break the paradigm of thought that these guys have, and the people who are on stage have no idea how to respond to Dylan Ratigan on this. This is awesome. Let's take a look. Dylan Ratigan having a complete meltdown on live television.
We owe $70 trillion.
Wait 1 second. There we go. All right, let's try this one more time. Now, by the way, this starts off, this video doesn't have it, but one of the women is talking. I don't know if it's a Democrat or Republican. She's talking. Dylan Ratigan is looking at her in this kind of, he's holding it in. And then this comes out.
We owe $70 trillion.
I understand that, but
goes
you
to walk out a $4 trillion solution, which is basically just a way for the Democrats to avoid dealing with this until 2017. I'm not here to talk about plans to deal with this till 2017. I'm saying we've got a real problem, and I'm tired of Republicans and Democrats who either want Republicans who want to burn the place to the ground, and Democrats, with all due respect, who want to offer a plan that gets it through their end of their second term of their presidency, and then screws me and my kids when it's over. And until we do that, we have to deal with the extraction that is at foot. It is the reason the financial markets are behaving the way they're behaving. That is a mathematical fact. This is not some opinion. This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America. Democrats aren't doing it. Republicans are not doing it. An entire integrated system, financial system, trading system, taxing system that was created by both parties over a period of 2 decades is at work on our entire country right now. And we're sitting here arguing about whether we should do the $4 trillion plan that kicks the can down the road for the president for 2017 or burn the place to the ground, both of which are reckless, irresponsible, and stupid. And the fact of the matter is, until we actually, and I'm sorry to lose my temper, but I tell you what, I've been coming on TV for 3 years doing this. And the fact of the matter is that there's a refusal on both the Democratic and the Republican side of the aisle to acknowledge the mathematical problem, which is that the United States of America is being extracted. It's being extracted through banking, it's being extracted through trade, and it's being extracted through taxation. And there's not a single politician that has stepped forward afford, Susan, to deal with this.
But there's only one right now. The leader of the free world, whether you like it or not, the President of the United States is arguably one of the most powerful individuals we have out there.
But
and
Susan,
he's
what you're
president.
saying is exactly the point that Dylan is making. It's not about one guy. It's about all of them.
No, I actually
together
disagree. I think Dylan's
what
saying
is one guy?
it is about one guy.
It is about one guy.
What would you like him to do?
I love this. This woman is being massively disingenuous. Dylan Ratigan has just come out and just laid down the law on both. He slapped down both. And the sniveling Republican in this is like, I agree with Dylan. Now, under normal circumstances, she's not going to agree with him. But she's agreeing with him because he's just said something mightily profound that breaks the paradigm that these guys are in. And you can either confront that fact from the standpoint of an honest person saying, Dylan, you're right. Or you can confront that fact from the standpoint of how do I curry favor with what this guy has just said in order to attack my political opponent. And being a political hatchet, she goes after her opponent. I think Dylan is right. This does boil down to one man. It's Obama's fault. It's Obama's fault. She misses the point, but she's using this for politics. But let's hear her out. Let's let him keep going.
I would like him to go to the people of the United States of America and say, people of the United States of America, your Congress is bought. Your Congress is incapable of making legislation on health care, banking, trade, or taxes, because if they do it, they will lose their political funding and they won't do it. But I'm the President of the United States, and I won't have a country that is run by a bought Congress. So I'm not going to work with a bought Congress and try to be Mr. Big Guy. I'm working with the bought Congress. I'm going to abandon the bought Congress like Teddy Roosevelt did, and I'm going to go to the people of the United States and I'm going to say, you've got a bought Congress. And until we get rid of the bought Congress, which is Jimmy Williams' constant point, which is get the money out of politics, and until a president says that's the problem and says he's going to fix it, there is no policy that I can possibly see, no matter how brilliant your idea may be, or your idea, or my idea, or her idea, or your idea at home.
That is breathtaking honesty. That's breathtaking honesty. There's something that's said, like when a person is saying something that's just fundamentally true, where everybody else shuts up because what that person is saying is fundamentally true. He's pissed off, he's dramatically annoyed by it, but what he's saying and being pissed off and annoyed is fundamentally true. Your Congress is bought. It's hard to look at American politics and not come to that conclusion. Like, do you believe that Obamacare, when it was crafted, I'm sorry, I have something in my eye. It's bugging me. When Obamacare was crafted, do you think they looked out and says, look, what's the best way to make sure people have health care? Meaning, what's the best way we can supply this under the model that we have? Hell, do we even need to change the model? But what's the best way to supply health care? And have this be this kind of technocratic solution to how do we make this work? Not how do we keep markets into the system? Not how do we keep drug companies into the system? Not none of that stuff. How do we make the system best for the human beings that are going to have to use the system? That's not what they did. They didn't do that with Obamacare. They didn't do that with Trump care because that wasn't the main objective of the healthcare itself, which it should have been. What's the point of doing healthcare if the whole point of it is not healthcare? What Ratigan is making the point on, nothing that you want will get accomplished because these guys are paid not to get those things accomplished. They're paid to muck up the works. They're paid to scream about Russia. They're paid to say anything else other than doing the things that the people want, the public wants. The public, look, even if the public believes it's Russia stuff, they don't believe it matters to the degree that these guys are hollering and screaming about it. And even if they're pushed on that thing of believing that it matters, they got that way because of hysterical press and a bunch of hysterical politicians obfuscating from the actual issues that the country addresses the country. Dylan Ratigan is absolutely right. Let him finish. I mean, it's a fucking epic meltdown. He's doing this shit on national television. I don't want to interrupt him too much.
That idea will not happen as long as there's the capacity to basically fire a politician who disagrees with me by taking funding away from him. Is that a fair assessment?
Money in politics is the root of all political evil. It is corruption at its worst. And until we step up and kick that out of the park, it's going to be the same system all
and only the president.
Does Chuck Todd know that? Does Mr. Oblivious Chuck Todd know that? Does Chuck, Mr. Oblivious Todd, when he's looking into the face, into the camera, smarmy as he is, and he's asking so ridiculous questions without any context whatsoever, and he's acting like, for example, Chuck Todd talking to Paul Ryan, and he's acting as if Paul Ryan has these deeply held principles and all this other stuff, as opposed to Paul Ryan just being bought. Or when they're talking to any politician, and they're having this argument as if these deeply held principles and so forth, from this, as opposed to the standpoint of, hey, you received this much money from all of these contributions. Does that have anything to do with the reason that you're voting the way that you're voting? The American public wants this, but your policy is this. How do you reconcile what you want with what the American public wants? Hey, the people in your district want this. How do you reconcile this with what you're voting for? Who are you there to vote for? I mean, who are you there voting to represent? I'm making a point that your system is bought. Your political system is bought. It's open air bribery. The media acts as if these are distinguished gentlemen, that yes, even though they get all of this money, that money in no way impugns their integrity. They have superhuman integrity. They, unlike you, it's like when you're bought, you actually do the things that the person wants. I'm buying you to mow my lawn, so I'm mowing my lawn. I'm not dicking around. Why do you believe politicians is going to act in a different way? The money that these guys get can either be used for them or against them. So you're taking this cash, you're saying thank you for giving this cash. When I call you, you're picking up that phone. And to be honest, I don't even have to call you. At that point, you know who gave you that cash, meaning you know the industries that support you. Now, if you vote against the interests of those particular industries, those industries will vote against you. Not only will they not give you that cash, but the person who they run, the person who they actually back, is probably going to try to take your head. The overwhelming majority of races, if I'm not mistaken, over 90%, depends on cash. The person with the most cash in most of those races wins. Not necessarily the presidency, because there are different optics, there are different dynamics at work. But if you're talking about local races and state races, if you knew that your campaign, your political campaign, was almost entirely dependent on one metric, cash, what do you do to get that cash? And what do you tell yourself to get that cash? Meaning, what do you tell yourself? What even if you start the process with this kind of integrity and morals and values and everything else, and you feel like, well, fuck, man, I need to compromise these things in order to get ahead, and I can work around the margins. This is the system to which I have to work. So the best that I can do is work around the margins. Is this not the Democratic argument? This is not the Democratic argument. This is literally the neoliberal argument. Well, markets and politics, and this is, you guys just don't understand. This is the way politics is. This is the best that we could do. Dylan Ratigan is kind of making this point that, look, this is not really the best that you can do. This is the best that you can do when you have a system that's bribed to this degree. It's open air bribery. Let's keep going.
They could do that. We're going to keep you guys.
The Congress has to do it too. The Congress has to do it too.
But I'll tell you what. How bad does it have to get? How much money has to be extracted? How many things have to be heard?
The brass tacks. Okay, physically, what do? You
go and give a speech
right now.
Right now.
Right now.
You say.
And then what happens tomorrow?
Tomorrow, what happens is you begin the process of actually investing in solving the problem. So I come out and I say, how? I create an infrastructure bank with 2% blending immediately. There's that. Once I explain to people the problem, once I explain to you have cancer, once you understand how screwed up your trade, tax, and banking policies are, believe me, you will have no issue when I incorporate an infrastructure bank that I fund with repatriated offshore money that I bring in and then use to create 2% direct lending to every business in America. Because when you realize that the banking system is fully corrupt and defrauding us, and I come out and say that, which is what I want my president to do, that at that exact moment I say, you know what, we got a screwed up situation here, people. You all know it, and now what? I'm going to admit it. And as a result, not only have I admitted it, but we're going to begin the process of solving it like grown-ups. They did it in World War II. They did it after the Civil War. They did it in Latin America with the Brady bonds. We are not seeing it happen now. The panel stays a little more emotional than I anticipated getting at work this afternoon.
He's right. He's right. I mean, imagine this start thing with the president coming on television saying we have a problem with open bribery in our politics. The Princeton study showing that what the public wants amounts to statistical noise in regards to political campaigns and political decisions. We have a problem. These guys are bought. These guys are bribed. Now, the catch to this is the president at this point is saying something that the public already knows. The public just feels completely disempowered to do anything about this process. So, Dylan Ratigan is right. That's Dylan Ratigan. Now, the question becomes, fuck, man, where did that guy go? What? It's like, how did MSNBC end up with just the Rachel Maddows and the Joe Scarboroughs? Where did that guy go? So this is still Ratigan explaining why he left MSNBC.
How I reconcile my leaving of MSNBC to start a solar-powered hydroponic farming business with a vision of a global network of high-performance, decentralized resource hubs with Helical Outpost and Helical Holdings, and my ongoing work and advocacy of incredibly intelligent, self-directed investing with the folks at Tasty Trade. For me, the belief in a future that is based on decentralized resource systems is not in conflict with the belief that the decentralization of knowledge about money is equally important. The reason I believe so much in what Tasty Trade is doing is not so much that I'm promoting one specific investment or one specific idea, but I'm promoting the idea that there isn't a need to centralize all of our resources, all of our investment into these giant passive funds. And in the process, when we do that, we abdicate our own responsibility to understand money. And the same way we want to decentralize our resource systems, we also want to decentralize the way we deal with our money by having a broader base of knowledge among a bigger group of human beings, all of us ideally, about how we navigate our money. Maybe you do want to be passive, but you don't want to be ignorant. And the beautiful thing about Tasty Trade is that it demands a rigorous level of knowledge from anybody who has any interest in money. And so for me, Tasty Trade and Helical, while they may seem very separate and very different, are actually incredibly aligned through the narrative and understanding of a mission to decentralize resources, information, and yes, knowledge about money.
All right, so just to give you a little bit more perspective on this guy, on Dylan Ratigan. Look, part of the reason I like Ratigan is he doesn't approach this from the standpoint of one or the other. He approaches this from the standpoint of end result. What is the world that I want? How do I get to the world that I want? And you don't look at the world through the lens of left and right at that point, if that makes sense. The left-right thing, those are just modes of thought. You don't look at it through this kind of tribalistic impulse in the way that he's looking at the world. It's this world can be arranged any way you want to arrange it. What's the best way to arrange it to make sure people have the things that they need? Now, it sounds like he's within a capitalistic construct, but that's perfectly okay. He's still somewhat of a lefty. He's having a conversation about communism. I want to give you a perspective of Ratigan, and part of the reason why I like the guy. Again, he's not looking at this from the standpoint of a left and a right. He's not looking at this from the standpoint of propaganda. He's looking at it from the standpoint of a human being looking at the world itself. Let's take a look at him. And these are short. I didn't want to do 2 long videos on him. I just wanted to get this idea of who Dylan Ratigan is.
Car here, back in America, driving to Los Angeles, no less. Hoping to see you. Anyway, I was thinking about those damn commies. And the problem with a centralized economy, the problem with an economy where you have a small group of people who control the vast majority of the resources, and they sit around without talking to anybody and decide what they want to do with it. No wonder we didn't like those commies. It's terrible. Can you imagine 50, 100, even 1,000 people who control the vast majority of the resources of a country like they did in China or Russia? And they're supposed to decide what is the right use of that money for hundreds of millions of people? No wonder Russia and China ultimately had to come around to capitalism. Bunch of commies. Anyway, I was thinking that here in the States right now, the vast majority of our resources are controlled by a few hundred, maybe 1,000 people. They're just not in the government. So how is the massive consolidation of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars into the custody of 100, maybe 300 people who have unilateral discretion to do whatever they want with those resources, to control the means of production, to dictate the employment future, to determine whether or not our country will convert to a green energy infrastructure, will convert to a preventative-based healthcare system? How is it possible that our so-called capitalist country has found itself in a situation where the vast majority of our resources are controlled by a few people as if it was a centralized, centrally planned economy?
And by the way, this is somewhat of a hellscape. This is this libertarian. This is the argument against libertarianism. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's making this point of the argument against capitalism is this kind of centralized economy. Well, you have a top 1% that owns the means of production and owns the majority of the resources of your particular country. Congratulations, you've got a centralized economy. The difference between these things is you as a public have no impact on those people. Meaning you don't control that wealth, you don't control those resources, and if you bitched and moan about it, they would have cops using your tax dollars to beat the shit out of you to get you away from their resources. Let's hear him out. He's almost finished.
And then I realized, at least in China and Russia, they had to pretend that they cared about the well-being of the people. Here, all the money's consolidated with a private group of individuals whose only agenda is their own self-gratification and self-promotion. They don't even have to pretend to care about our society. So there's a very rich irony to be America, the country that took down the commies, suddenly functioning with a significantly more distorted and more corrupted, centrally planned economy that the communists would have only dreamed about. That's hardly a competitive system, and it's hardly the decentralized and opportunistic type of economy that we claim to want. This is easily solved. The solution is tax policy, but probably not in the way you think, because we just don't want to tax the rich people and shift all the money back to the government, because that just gives all the money to another group of people. But we'll do a tax policy conversation on another day.
All right. And so we understand what he's talking about. Let's not leave him hanging. Let's talk about tax policy. And after this, we'll talk about what this guy's doing now.
Let's have the conversation about taxes. Donald Trump says he's going to reveal his big tax plan. Of course, it comes with no real actual plan, but lots of fanfare, which is his number one speciality. In fact, he's so good at fanfare that he's now the president of the United States of America, which is saying something. The problem with the conversation we have in this country around taxes is this. The assumption is that all tax money, or the primary tax revenue for our country, should come from income. In other words, when you make money, the government takes some of it. I want to back up a little bit and have you think about taxes a slightly different way. Imagine taxes are a way of punishment. And so you want to use taxes to punish the things that you don't want to have in society. And you want to reduce taxes to encourage the things you do want to have in society. And now imagine a political body, the Congress, the government, state or federal, that debates what are the things we want to have more of in society and what are the things we want to have less of in society, and then reflects that intention, more of or less of, through tax policy. The most obvious thing here, I guess, is smoking, where we raise taxes on smoking in order to reduce smoking, which has proven very effective in places like New York City, or where you have no taxes for companies that are investing in creating small businesses in rural communities. So those would be sort of the more obvious examples of the use of taxes in that way. But writ large, we actually use taxes as a country to punish people for the act of making money, for generating income. So if you are an earner where you have a job and you get paid money, you get taxed. Why should we tax you for making money? We want you to have money in your life. We want everybody to have money in their life as much as they possibly can. At the same time, why do we create tax benefits for things that we know are bad for society? Things, the most obvious one being fossil fuels. So don't be fooled by the Democrat, Republican, Donald Trump tax conversation, where it's tax cuts for the rich or it's taxes on the middle class. The whole idea of taxing income across the board is entirely misguided. Income is something that we want to encourage more of, and the political debate needs to be around taxing things we want less of, the most obvious one being things like fossil fuels. And then, of course, the tax revenue from taxing fossil fuels could be helped to support people from, for instance, the coal industry, who are naturally going to be affected by the transition and for whom we must, as a country, have some understanding and compassion. But again, taxes are a punishment or they are an encouragement depending on how they're used, as opposed to deciding whether we should tax people who make a lot of money or a little bit of money. Why are we taxing anybody for making money? Let's tax the things we don't want. Let's not tax the things we do want. don't get your hopes up. I'm not expecting anybody in the Democratic or Republican Party to get on board with this, but it's just a way to think about taxes that you might even be able to apply in your own small town, at least to start with, as opposed to getting bought into the false debate about who should pay the most taxes out of their income, when the idea should be to tax income in general as little as possible, and then encourage the investment in businesses that have a longevity for society, that have the ability to transition society, they have the ability to create jobs in society. So you create tax benefits there, and then you create tax penalties for excess consumption, or for that matter, things like fossil fuels. Taxes are a punishment. They're not a way to collect money.
I understand what Ratigan is getting at there. I understand what he's getting at. I mean, I don't know how that would work. Yeah, I don't know how that works. I guess my thought is, at the end of the day, you're still stuck with the situation where people with means is going to inject themselves into the political process. If you're functioning in a system that have money or some kind of incentive in that way, well, they're going to use that cash in order to influence things. I guess you can try to get money out of politics, which was his first argument. So I don't want to piecemeal it. I mean, it would be unfair to him to piecemeal one thing after the next when he's talked about all of it. That guy, Dylan Ratigan, is running for Congress. He's left media in this case, or at the very least, I think he still does videos. But for all intents and purposes, Dylan Ratigan is now running for U.S. Congress. Let's take a look at this. This is a Deadline article. MSNBC alum Dylan Ratigan running for Congress. Straight talk, progress for the people. That's the tagline for Dylan Ratigan's homepage. Below the words, Dylan Ratigan for Congress. In the latest case of TV meets real-world politics, the former MSNBC anchor has launched a bid for a seat in the United States House of Representatives. He is running as a Democrat against GOP incumbent Elise Stefanik in New York's 21st Congressional District in the northern part of the state. The Saranatic, New York native was host to the Dylan Ratigan Show, which aired from 2009 on MSNBC. Originally titled Morning Meeting with Dylan Ratigan, the show focused on politics and the economy, often keying on business and financial matters. Ratigan honed his economic chops as global managing editor for corporate finance at Bloomberg LP, and later on business-focused CNBC show Fast Money and Closing Bell. I chose to resign from a well-paying, high-profile jobs in 2009 and 2012 because I objected to corruption, both financial and political, Ratigan said amid a series of tweets today confirming and explaining his candidacy. I made a hard choice that I believe in. It's that integrity and willingness to stand up for what I believe in that I'm going to take to Washington. Ratigan is also author of Greedy Bastards. His book in 2012 was a New York Times bestseller. He does commentary for Cenk Uyghur's show The Young Turks and hosts a podcast called Greedy Bastards Antidote. Here's his tweets. The questions I've asked myself since the first days at St. Bernard's Elementary is, what am I going to do? And it became clear to me at an early age that my obligation to myself was to do the best that I possibly could for what I had and to use my abilities to help people. Here's how a congressional campaign works. Conducts a poll, find out what the people are most afraid of and what they love. Raise money, hire producers, make content to play on the emotions of voters, and make your opponent look worse than you do. I don't have this privilege. We're running a different kind of campaign. I'm running for Congress of New York 21 as Dylan Ratigan from Saranac Lake. DylanRatigan.com. I'm running for Congress, but I've never voted in my life. Wow. I've always thought the choices available didn't reflect the potential leadership for this country. I've worked for truth via journalism and small business via veteran-run farms. I thought that was enough. I was wrong. People are disgusted, but the indulgence of our disgust and the lack of leadership and seriousness in government is something we can no longer allow. The risks for our country are the greatest that they've ever been, but when the risks are high, the opportunity is equally high. I chose to resign from the well-paying profile jobs in 2009 and 2012 because I objected to corruption, both financial and political. I made a hard choice that I believe in. It's that integrity and willingness to stand up for what I believe that I'm taking to Washington. Jesus Christ, these are a lot of tweets. We just passed the least serious piece of tax legislation in American history. The government's not serious. Our politicians aren't serious, and that needs to change now. Tax policy dictates the flow of money and resources in our economy. It is the most serious conversation we can have after talking about defense of our borders. My candidacy for the Democratic nomination for the issues that I stand for and that the party stands for, oh God. But at the end of the day, I'm not running for a party. I'm running to make the leadership in the district and America more serious. My positions have been consistent throughout my entire career, which is, let's be serious, have a serious conversation and create real solutions. I've been thinking about this for years as I've been watching the past few years become less and less serious, but I didn't want to run at the expense of the hydroponic farming business, and I didn't want to declare it until I knew it wouldn't affect the people working there. I like Dylan Ratigan. He is far more ensconced into the capitalistic system than I am clearly, but I think he tries to be earnest. And I've been on this sandbox of corruption. Corruption is the problem. Corruption is the problem. Nothing gets accomplished in a corrupt system. Nothing gets accomplished in a corrupt system. Nothing gets accomplished in a corrupt system. So I like the thing that this is his talking point. This is the thing that pisses him off also, where he looks at this and be like, these people aren't serious. These people are full of shit. There's no way you can try to do Trump care, tell people that they're better off, or tell people that this is in their best interest. It's fucking impossible. There is no way that you can raise the military budget in the way that you raise the military budget and in the same breath say, we don't have money for education or healthcare. It's not serious. That's his point. And that's what I like. Alex Lopez, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Guys, when you guys give Super Cash, leave a comment. I like the comments. I like the comments. So what do you guys think? I like the fact that Dylan Ratigan is running for Congress. I like the fact that Dylan Ratigan is running for Congress. So if Dylan is running, he has my support until he does something that pisses me off. Until he does something that pisses me off. Unlikely ally, Thomas Frank. Listen, Liberal. Yeah, Listen, Liberal is a really good book. Marshall Smith. Really, people got to understand MMT. K-FAR. There are also a lot of coercive demand mechanisms for the currency. That's fair. Yeah. I think you're talking about my saying that once you have this kind of incentive structure of cash, you have corruption, all this other stuff in the process. Yeah. Copter Force. I wouldn't mind paying the 35% tax for legal weed in California if I really thought this place would be using for medical, cleaning up the homeless problem, etc. You know, it's funny, Copter Force. I've heard a lot of people say that. Like, I wouldn't mind giving my money to the government if I thought the government was going to spend it on something that was actually beneficial. Yeah. K-FAR. Only at the start after established network effect. Let's see. Let's get down towards the bottom because we're out of sync. Sounds like capitalism with extra steps to me. Aaron's right, a little bit. A little bit. He's okay, not bad, but he's still ensconced in Democrats. Tim Flobuck. You heard that part at the end is like, I wanted the party I believe in, and then he's like, but I'm not running as a party. I'm not running as a party. He undermined that real quick. He undermined that really, really quick. Oh yeah, he got that quick. He's like, you know, I wanted the things that the party believes in, but I'm not running as a party. I'm running because I want to fix this shit. Yeah. Marshall Smith. Yes, Dilligan is completely engaged in capitalism. Yes, he is. I mean, this argument of decentralized structures and everything else. But on the positive side, he has a capacity to critique both. Meaning he has a capacity to critique the excesses of it, which is a lot more than most people can do. Most people don't even know that it's this kind of mechanism. Most people just think it's, you know, this is the way the world is and all this other stuff. He at least has a capacity to honestly engage the way the systems are, meaning capitalism, communism, whatever. He can at least see it. Most people can't even see it. And if he at the very least cares about the corruption, then he's one step ahead. It's one step ahead. He isn't running as a Democrat. Well, according to this, he is. Yeah. Yes, he is. According to Dylan Ratigan himself, my candidacy is for the Democratic nomination, but for the issues that I stand for and for the party stands for. But at the end of the day, I'm not running for a party. I'm running to make the leadership in our district in America more serious. He is running as a Democrat. Oh God, I'm being called an abused wife, Jamal. Oh, Jay, that's funny. The system corrupts all exposed to it. Maddow and Franken used to be good guys. Now look at them. Den 1, that's actually a good point. That's actually a good point. But, what I would say with that is it possible that you thought they were good guys, but you didn't have a better perspective? Like, so, do you remember if you've watched True Blood? Yeah, True Blood. I used to love that show, HBO, True Blood. Do you remember on the first season, and maybe I think it's first 2 seasons, Sam on True Blood, that was the one who could turn himself as a shapeshifter. He could turn like a dog and all this other stuff. When he started the show, Sam was this lovable dog that would hang around Sookie, and he lusted after her. He was in love with that woman. So he would be her lovable dog. This kind of allegory for him being the best friend in the friend zone. And you're like, oh, Sam is so cute. He's he's this lovable dog. He likes Sookie and everything else. And then you find out, I think on season 3 or 4, that Sam had murdered a guy and threw his body in the lake. And Sam had this like edge to him. You're like, what the fuck? This guy was acting like a puppy. This guy's murdering people. What the hell? Yes, Sam was acting as a dog when he was with Sookie. Yes, Sam did like Sookie. The shading of Sam that you saw when you were first watching this show was from the perspective of this is his relationship with Sookie. That is not the totality of the person. Yeah, Maddow could be a lefty when Maddow is having this conversation about George Bush. Franken could be a lefty when he's having the conversation about Bill O'Reilly. When they are attached to a party and they're working in a party structure in this case, you expect them to be honest because they call themselves news guys, or at the very least Maddow. Yeah, not so much. These guys are Democrats. They're not. It's not based on principles. It's based on what the party goes. Unless you want to say the principle of the party. They may in their head think, well, the party fights for X, Y, Z, and so I need to play this particular game, and I need to function with the behest of the party because that's a better scenario. Whatever they craft in their heads. If they're obfuscating reality purely for the sake of their particular party, then they function at the behest of the party. I'm making a point that what you considered of Maddow during the time that she was interacting with Bush was because she was interacting with Bush. Your problem with Maddow now is because you've seen her through an Obama presidency, and you've seen her through a Trump presidency, and you've looked at to say, wait a minute. How can you be pissed at one and not the other? How do you let one get a pass but not the other? It creates this dichotomy in your head. I don't know when your political awakening came, meaning the time when you started paying attention to politics. I started paying attention during the Bush administration. I wasn't fully engaged, but it is where I started paying attention to it. So my initial experience of Maddow was Maddow, George Bush, Keith Olbermann, Tom Hartman, Sam Seed, these guys. That was my perspective of politics. And then you go through Obama's period and you go through Trump. And you hit this point of, wait a minute, where were you on this other stuff? Why are you giving this guy a pass on all this other stuff, but you're, screaming in high heaven about George Bush and screaming in high heaven about Donald Trump and all this other stuff? It's your perspective that's changed. It's not, I guess I'm saying, the person hasn't changed. The person hasn't fundamentally changed. It's your perspective of the person. You get a different view of the person. It's almost like your line of sight. It's changed. You get more context. That's all I mean. I know I'm saying that's a lot of words to try to make the point. But Josiah Ewing, thanks, man. I love this picture. I think this is Jesus Christ. I love this. Thanks, Ewing. I appreciate it, man. Guys, I do appreciate your super cash. It helps the show tremendously. Sweet Black Panther shirt. On the side note, in terms of Earl Panthers, Fred Hampton was the man. Speaking of the Panthers, there's files where the FBI essentially is instigating the Black Panther, this kind of conflict between main leaders of the Black Panthers, creating a split, faking stuff on these guys to make these guys go at each other and fight in order to disrupt the organization itself. And lefties right now are supporting the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA in their mass surveillance because it allows them to attack Donald Trump. Sad. It's fucking sad. It's embarrassing. Even Sookie got a lot of blood on her hands. And she killed Bill. Which, it hurts. I love Bill. Bill Compton on that show was probably one of my favorite characters. Well, hands down, he was my favorite character. This is a detour. This is a massive detour. I'm sorry. You guys got me talking about this show. I love this show. towards the end of the show where Bill is ill. He's sick. And because Bill is sick, I would say that Bill is going through a certain amount of depression. And they took the depression that Bill was going through as if, this was this kind of overarching thing, that they were listening to his decisions and everything else. Fuck that. I don't care what Bill wants. Bill is getting a cure, and we're calling this shit a day. If Bill want to off himself after, Bill can off himself after, but he's going to off himself from the perspective of him having that cure. Sookie kills Bill at the end, and it hurt like nobody's business. I was like, there's no way they're going to go, oh my God, she killed Bill. She killed Bill. Bastards. I killed Bill off. I thought Bill was going to get back with Sookie. When AC died, I was like, I know this sounds bad. When AC died, I was like, yes. Yes, good. Bill has a chance. Bill has a chance. Nothing in the last 3 seasons that happened and made any sense of True Blood. Copter Force. Yeah, I don't know what happened toward the end of that. That got a little weird. The vampire god thing and all this other stuff got bizarre. They got extraordinarily bizarre. Eroker. Thank you, Eroker. Phoenix. I love the image. Nobody wants to put in images. Or nobody wants to say anything. That's fine. I still appreciate it. Thank you, Eroker. Go look it up. The Black Panther coloring book in COINTELPRO. The Black Panther coloring book? Is that a real thing? Yeah, I know what COINTELPRO is. I don't know what the Black Panther coloring book is. Pat Hacker, I have no idea what he's talking about. Wake me up when he stops. Oh, you guys don't like True Blood? You guys don't like True Blood. You guys are haters. You guys are haters. You guys are absolute haters. But look, I'm never going to keep this one going long. At this point, we're just after show talking. Guys, I know I have a lot of new subscribers. My typical, the way I go about this is I give my spiel in the beginning, maybe about 15, 20 minutes. It depends on the topic, after which points I just interact with the audience. This can be either call-in or it can be just through chat. I don't think I have my call-in thing up for this particular one because I don't know if this one is enough to carry a full show. But for all intents and purposes, towards the end, it's just conversation. Super Strike 9. The Black Panther coloring book is what inspired Bernie. Oh, I see. I've been reading the Oligarch's Playbook, The Prince. It's illuminating and frightening. The Oligarch's Playbook. I'll look that one up. One of the most interesting books I've read was, I think it's called, the guy's Bruce De La Sente or something like that. But he makes this one basic argument, and the argument, I can't, it's a terrifying argument, but I think the argument is right. Where he makes the case that, look, people in power, for all intents and purposes, do what they need to do to stay in power. What they give the population and everything else ultimately boils down to what they do to stay in power. That's all they care about. If you had a dictator, if you had somebody in another country, they do what they need to do to stay in power. If I have the money for oil revenue, then I can, for the most part, do whatever I want because I'm not overwhelmingly dependent on the population. So those populations are going to have shittier existences. If I need the population in order to make cash and revenue and everything else, then I'm going to have to build up the country in order to get those things. What they do and the decisions they make are purely boiled around what are my political objectives? What do I need to give in order to get those things? It's purely a boiled down to calculus of self-interest. Governments boil down to self-interest. It's terrifying when you read it, but you're like, fuck, this guy makes too much sense. He's a political scientist. Oh, by Machiavelli. Ah, I see. Revanches, thank you. They won't need us much after AI robotics. That's the other terrifying part. Fletcher Daniels. Vampire Talk actually listened to the original Blade soundtrack. That's funny. How coincidental. Zox Avux. The robotics thing's a big deal. That's a big deal. A lot of the issues that we have in our society boil down to how we perceive this stuff. It's not, you have all the resources that you need to get things done that you need to get done. You even have the technical acumen to reorganize your society with artificial intelligence or with technology. What happens when labor gets weaker and weaker and weaker because you need less and less and less of labor? And when you have that particular pressure on the society, meaning more and more people are unemployed, corporations are still making the things that they need and everything else, meaning they still get their profits. But you have this weird situation where the top 1% becomes that much more entrenched, whereas the rest becomes that much more insecure. It's almost like workers give up their power in the way they go about their affairs in this country. They give up their power. You could, I guess, I always get annoyed on this. I feel like you could have this world of abundance. You could literally have this world of abundance, and we choose to fuck it up. I don't want a person driving a taxi if a robot can drive a taxi. I don't want a person dropping french fries if a robot can do that. I would prefer those people doing other things. I don't care if those people go fishing. I would prefer those people to do other things than doing those behaviors. I say that to say that robotics is not a bad thing. It's the way the society deals with those things that's somewhat of a problem. Robotics should be this freeing thing. Technology should be this thing that frees humanity, releases human potential. Instead, we don't use it that way. We use it in this odd way to reap profit as opposed to actually provide needs. It's a fucked up way of organizing society. Look, I don't like the capitalistic thing that Dylan Ratigan is ensconced in. But do I believe that Dylan Ratigan cares about corruption? Yes. Do I believe that Dylan Ratigan looks at this stuff and said, these people are not being serious? If you're telling me you're Donald Trump, you jumped around the country and you said, look, I'm going to get rid of Obamacare, but you're going to have big, beautiful health care. Great. Everybody's going to have health care. And then you make a shittier, mutilated version of Obamacare, which in and of itself was a shittier, mutilated version of actual healthcare system. Where's the seriousness? Where's the seriousness? Like, what is your objective in this? Your objective could not have been to supply healthcare. You're either the most incompetent person on the planet, or your objective was not to supply healthcare. Your objective was to supply a tax cut. You're not being serious. And I think Dylan Ratigan's point is, in one case after the next, these people are not being serious. Now, he has a bee in his bonnet about taxes. Fair enough. Fair enough. But he is right on one point. Monetary policy is the discretion of Congress. And Congress could change monetary policy in all sorts of ways. We act like this is the only way. That stuff is perspective, man. That stuff is, money is not real. You come up with any perspective that you want. You make the argument that you need to make in order to get what you need done. Republicans scream about, they're barbarians at our gates, so they can get more money for military spending. Donald Trump screams about our borders so they can get more money for the borders. You make your argument. Reality is, it's less important. When I think about the best characters in True Blood, though, it has to be the bad guy vampire, Russell. He was the one who broke the news station and ripped out that news. Yes. I forgot about Russell. The gay vampire. He was awesome. Yeah, he was awesome. He made an odd comment about Jeff Bezos. It was somewhat complimentary about him. What? No way. I'm going to have to look that up, Fletcher. You're breaking my heart. I'm going to have to look that up. And then, I got to be honest, I don't know when this is also. Like the time frame. Like, was this back in 2009 or was this after Jeff Bezos took the Washington Post and this other stuff? I get the sense that he doesn't like the decentralized structure stuff. Or he doesn't like the centralized structure stuff. And I also get the sense that he would chafe at this idea of the Washington Post being owned by Jeff Bezos, who's getting money from the CIA. I think he would chafe at that. I think he would absolutely chafe. Just based on the stuff that he said on his other fronts, I think he would chafe at it. So they purposely keep a class of people well enough off, and so they will defend them. Yeah, bribery. Yeah, my argument was always people are bribed along the economic scale in order to support the system that they're in. It's kind of like Hunger Games. Like you're given the perspective of Candace, I think it was her name. Like these people outside on the outskirts fighting for themselves. But certainly the entirety of the society is not like that. You have the capital. That particular capital city has people along a particular economic ladder. The people who are in the capital city has a fundamentally different perspective than the people who are not. You keep those people along the economic ladder because those people will fight and maintain that system. And those people will be the vanguards and protectors of the system that suppresses everyone else. Understand the situation to which you find yourself. Now, the United States is what, 5% of the world's population. What we have 25% of the population in our prisons, world prison population in our prisons. And when you compare wealth in the United States to everywhere else, now mind you, half of the United States is either in poverty or making a poverty wage. So when you put that in perspective and you say, well, the rest of the world is in this situation with like 60% living off $10 a day. Assume for the moment that capital city in Hunger Games is not necessarily an actual city, but is an allegory for maybe a country, or an allegory for a sect of countries, a joint group of countries in comparison to the rest of the world. It's those set group of countries that allow the system to prosper the way the system is. It is not the totality of the world. If you have the majority of the wealth stuffed into the top 1%, and then that 1% bribes another percentage, and then you have the overwhelming majority, though, living in the, shit and piss. It does look like Hunger Games. It does look like Hunger Games. So, that was 90% of the world's prison population. It's not 90%. It's not that high. 5% of the world's population, 25% in our prisons. No, it's 25%. It's 25%. It's not 90%. If it was perfect, why would they need to change it? JJFSX. Why does everybody think if we cooperate instead of compete, everything will go bad? I don't get that, because I have proof collectives works. Yeah, I don't understand it either. In fact, it's I would argue it's the opposite. It's like competition is problematic. Like, think of a cooperative system from the standpoint of how many shoes do you have when you go into a shoe store? How many shoes do you need? Those shoes are, for all intents and purposes, the same thing. All of these people are making all of these different things, and all of these little businesses are bumping into each other. People are losing their jobs. People are not employed. You have situations where people don't necessarily get the health care. Like, you have this free-for-all society. I don't understand why they think that's better than a society that's working in tandem with one another. I don't get it. Now, I think their argument is you need cash. That's usually what arguments being made on this front, that you can't take cash out of that process. And if you take cash out of the process, for whatever reason, society falls apart. I think this is comically ridiculous and a childish way to look at it. But I think they look at it this way is because they're ensconced in the system the way it is. It's like you're looking outside of the system that you're in and you can't see anything outside of this particular system. Not to mention, many of those people have a self-interest in keeping the system the way it is. So yeah, a lot of stuff is just propaganda. Worker co-ops, yes, are good. I love them. Those are awesome. All right, so I'm going to end this because I have one or two more that I want to do before it gets too late. I was up to like 5 a.m. last night doing these, so today is probably going to be cut short. Guys, again, thank you for everyone that donated. Josiah Ewing, I love that name. I love the picture. I'm sorry, it looks like a picture of Jesus in the little custom thing. Iroker and Alex Lopez, thank you guys, I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'll see you probably in about 15 minutes, however long it takes for this to flip over. If you guys enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the patron. And yeah, Dylan Ratigan is running for Congress in New York. So fucking A. Thanks, guys.